Welcome, friends of the Greasy Shop Rag. Today we're going to take a look at a Husqvarna 350 chainsaw. The customer complaint is that it won't start. So, as with most of our repairs, the first thing we're going to do is look into the fuel tank, look at the quality of the fuel, look to see if there's water on the bottom of the tank, look at the fuel filter, see what kind of condition it's in. Let's fish this filter out of here. You know, on some other models of saws or other brands, it's not as easy to get the filter out as it is on a Husqvarna. Sometimes they hang in there and you can't actually pull them outside of the tank. But most Huskies are set up like this where you can easily access and replace the filter. So we're going to pressurize this fuel line and see if it holds 10 pounds of pressure. Well, it doesn't. I can't even pump it up to 10 pounds. That means that the fuel line or the carburetor has a leak. And we need to figure out which one it is. We're going to start by dumping the old fuel out of the tank. And again, the condition of the fuel looked good. And it smelled good. So now the next thing I like to do is I like to look in the cylinder, because I'm not repairing a saw that has a scored cylinder. And you know, earlier on in my career as a mechanic, I've been burned a lot of times where I've found a problem, went ahead and repaired it, only to find out later that the engine was scored. And I wasted all that time and effort on the repair that didn't need to be done because the customer wasn't going to pay for a new piston and cylinder and whatever caused that lean condition to make that happen. So I've learned to look in the cylinder first and determine the condition of the engine. And in this case, it looked good. Clean and shiny. No scoring, no vertical lines. Alright, we got our plug back in. Pull that air filter off of there. That looks like a brand new filter. You know, and that spark plug looked new too. The thing wouldn't start, and the first thing most people do is they go for the air filter and a spark plug. So there's our fuel line. We just pulled it off the carburetor, and I'm going to plug the end of it. And that plug that I put in there, that was part of the kit that came with the Mighty Vac pressure pump. So we're fishing our line back out of the tank. And we're going to pressurize it and see if it holds or not. It's not holding. That means there's a hole in the fuel line, which is, I guess, good news because it's easier to replace the fuel line than open up a carburetor. So on this model, the fuel line comes up the side of the tank up here on top. And I was just blowing the debris away from that exit point. So when I pull this out, no schmutz drops into the tank. So first the line comes down out from the bottom of the carb tray and then out of the fuel tank. I'm trying to be a little bit careful with it because I want to look for a hole in it. And sure enough, we found a hole. And it's not just a single hole, it's a series of cracks at the bend in the fuel line. So this is just from age. There wasn't any mechanical wear or anything like that. So we're going to put a new, I call this a pigtail fuel line. Pretty common Husqvarna part used in a lot of equipment. Could you use a regular piece of straight fuel hose? I suppose you could. This black rubber hose, though, makes bends pretty good without kinking. So we pushed a little bit of the hose through the side of the tank, just enough so we could grab it and pull it through. We're going to flush cut the end of the hose because they're pre-cut on an angle. And then we'll push our fuel filter on here. We're using the orange filters. 591375401 is the part number. And then kind of measuring how much fuel line has to be in the tank and how much needs to be outside of the tank so we can reach the carburetor. We'll flush cut the other end and we'll push the line onto the fitting on the carburetor. And then again, adjust our slack. We want a nice gentle bend where it comes out of the tank and nothing kinked up here next to the carburetor. So let's put some fuel back in here. And we want to check for a leak where that hose passed through the fuel tank. There's no grommet or anything there. It's just a hole in the tank, and the diameter of the fuel hose seals that hole. So far, so good. No leaks. Put our air filter back on here, and let's see if this thing runs now. Alright, it didn't run too bad. All it needed was that hose. We'll go out, do some test cutting with it afterwards. So that's all I'm going to have for you on the Husqvarna 350 chainsaw that wouldn't start because it had a hole in the fuel line. Thanks for watching. Later.